Hi, beautiful soul. Welcome to today's transmission and welcome to my channel if you're new. So today's video is just about self-reflection. I want to share with you some thoughts about, why it's so important, but also why it's so hard for us. So often when we get caught, we have blind spots. So how do we then move past that? How do we move through our inability or our reluctance to self-reflect, and why would we want to? So before I get started, if you enjoy my content, I would love it if you could just like this video and subscribe to the channel so that you'll see anything that I release in the future. So firstly, why even self-reflect? Why is it so important? Well, ask yourself first, am I happy? Is everything in my life perfect? And I'm guessing the answer is probably not quite, and it's not about going, there's a problem here, but it's simply about going, okay, well, I love my life, but what's working and what's not working? Similar to if you're running a factory and you had a machine and it wasn't putting out the intended product at the end of the production process, you'd sit there and you would look at the machine and you would say, okay, well, what's going on? What's going wrong? Where is the process breaking down? What's not aligning? And so similarly for our human experience, if we're going through life and we might have a consistent complaint, it's like, why is this always happening to me? Or I get really angry really easily, or people always upset me. So if this is a consistent state of our experience, what is it that's happening within us that is causing that to be reflected in our outside world? And this is why it's so important to be able to turn that curiosity, turn that inquiring eye within, so that we can actually transform at the source of our creative process, which is ourself, rather than always seeking to change the world outside of us or to change a particular situation so that we can be happier. And then we find down the track the same situation occurs again, because we haven't shifted anything in our internal landscape at the creator level. So yeah, simply put, we simply have to be open to seeing what's not serving us in our own patterns and our own perceptions and perspectives. And sometimes, like I'm not denying, sometimes that will mean that things will shift in the world around us. But it's the sense of empowerment and the ability to make those changes from within ourselves first, and then enacting what is required to occur outside of us, rather than changing something outside and expecting it to fix us inside. So external pain is a projection of our internal vibe. Now that might resonate. It might be something where you kind of go, no, that's BS. And this transmission, it's not about blame. On the contrary, it's actually about inviting you to move beyond blame or judgment. So we're not looking to blame ourselves, but we are looking to be responsible, to take back responsibility. And that, that can be one of the reasons self-reflection is really hard. We don't want to assume responsibility for what's going wrong for us, or, wrong. I don't believe that anything's really wrong. But we don't want to assume responsibility. Responsibility can be hard. It can be confronting. And especially if we get stuck in the blame and judgment mindset, where, we punish ourselves and we create more suffering for ourselves through this sense of judgment and rejection of the current situation. So moving back to my notes, black spots, they are going to be inevitable. So, self-reflection, yes, it's super necessary if we intend on ever shifting our experience of life. If there's anything that we ever want to grow through or learn or evolve from. But it's really hard because a lot of the time, self-reflection, we're looking at things which are occurring beneath the layer of our consciousness, beneath the layer of our human consciousness. So it might be subconscious. There might be deeply embedded patterns in our cellular memory even. There might be ancestral habits and based on belief systems which were imprinted not even from a conscious learning process, simply from an embodied experience of our familial timelines. So these black spots are inevitable. And this is why I always suggest the antidote for that is curiosity. And I love that I use the term ruthless curiosity, simply because it's this tenacious desire to learn and to observe and to understand. But I use the term curiosity because to me it feels light and it feels open. I feel like curiosity is a state that we can sit in without expecting and requiring concrete certainty. So I can be curious as a means to understand without needing to pigeonhole what I observe into a particular categorization. So curiosity, I associate more with our open awareness rather than our focused logical mind. So the other point when we're looking for black spots is that we don't want to fixate on the problem. So if we fixate on the problem, this is again makes it difficult we're going to be reluctant to self-reflect because we see it as a process of finding fault with ourselves. So instead of perhaps following the process and then fixating on what we've done wrong, how all the bad things that have happened because of this particular state of mind or this particular reaction or habit of reaction, we can instead use this curiosity to look at, with this openness, what sort of solution can grow from this awareness, So the main means of using this curiosity approach, and as I said, we've got these black spots which are within us. Our external world is a wealth of material for us. Our external world and the way that we react and respond to it. So, meditation really helps to defuse our egoic mind, to defuse our awareness from the focused intensity of a particular experience, to perhaps step back and be able to observe a certain experience. And, this is, I have grown so much simply through this capacity to, and it may not happen in the moment. It may be you go home at night and you go, oh, I wonder why I reacted that way, and anything that doesn't feel good in our body, we'll notice there's a sense of contraction. Maybe we feel ashamed about how we spoke to somebody. Maybe we feel ashamed that we didn't speak up. Maybe we react at somebody. Maybe we think somebody's done the wrong thing by us, and maybe they have. But what is the trigger point within you that has caused that to make you feel so diminished. So I feel like I would like to go deeper with this, but for the purpose of this transmission, we'll keep it a little bit briefer. But this is just speaking to a little bit to where we go from, victim to creating our own healthy boundaries, doing this inner work and taking responsibility for our emotions and ownership for our patterns and transformation doesn't mean that we become a doormat. So it's just a process of awareness. It simply means that the way we enact our power, our personal power, is in a much more grounded and deliberate way rather than reactionary and defensive. So just coming back to that idea, we use curiosity to notice our external world. We notice how we react in it. And from there, we can say, did that make me feel good? And if not, and I mean really good. I don't mean like, I showed them. Good in a way that we are one with the world, in a way that sits well with yourselves and your inner being. So, when we act from this free place, from this free and expanded state of our own experience, where we've been able to look at our own patterns and experience and question, why did I react that way? What needs to heal within me so that I don't feel triggered like that in the future? And, so much is out of our control. It doesn't mean that we have to put up with stuff, like I said, but so much is outside of our control. So if we don't take this responsibility and ownership of our own inner state, we're going to be constantly blown about. So ask that question: what can change within me that will transform how I'm experiencing this? So even if someone's being a jerk, at first you might feel really bullied, you might feel really disempowered. And that's probably based on a pattern or an experience that occurred a long time ago, has imprinted that reaction, that disempowerment. So what can we change within us so that if the bully behaves that way, we're adults now. More often than not, and I'm not saying this works all the time, but more often than not, we do have the capacity to speak. But perhaps we're blocked by fear because last time we spoke, something bad happened. Just an example. Again, not the platform to go too deeply into this. You can always check out my work or contact me if this kind of sparks something within you. So the other reason why self-reflection, or my final points, self-reflection is so hard, and I mentioned it before because we might see it as being a threat to the way we see ourselves or to the way we've been in the world. We might approach it with a sense of judgment, and we might be unable to face the sense of error, or perhaps looking at ourselves as having made mistakes in the past. So there are a few attributes here which I've just listed. So when we're working with this curiosity, with this self-reflection, and when we're looking to, it's essentially life review, it's self-assessment to say what's working for me, what's not working for me. We do so with kindness. If you were trying to teach a child how to do something in the world, you would be kind and patient. And if they made a mistake, you wouldn't judge them. You wouldn't criticize them. It's part of that learning process. And so if we look at it in the context of our whole human life, we're just here to learn, to grow, to evolve, and to embody, more wisdom, more love, more power, and more of our true aspects, more of our true nature. So kindness, compassion, humility, and acceptance. So these 4 qualities really, are aimed at taking us out of the problem mindset and taking us out of the tendency to judge. Acceptance is key, because if we can't accept the way these patterns have played out in our past, then we're not going to be able to forgive ourselves, or perhaps forgive others. Well, this is all about forgiving others, but it's this process is about not making other people wrong. And there's that wonderful saying, hurt people hurt people. So when people are behaving poorly towards you, that's simply an expression of their own pain. Doesn't mean that you need to put up with it, but it is coming from an expression of their own pain. And if we have compassion for ourselves and for others, then we can see that perhaps if we do self-reflect and we do see that perhaps we've not behaved or related in a way that is of our, in a way that makes us proud, give yourself some grace, some compassion to look back and say, well, I did the best I could then. And now that I know, I can do better, or I can do different. So get out of problems, getting out of judgment. And as I said, it can be really confronting, especially if, and this is just an example that comes to mind, if we've had relationships and relationships, start and finish all the time. But if we're unable to accept that perhaps our limited thinking at a prior point in our life might have contributed to a relationship breakdown, instead of, if we can't accept that and we can't see the compassion for ourselves, then we're going to be forever stuck in that point and we'll never move forward from it. Whereas, again, going back to the idea, life is a lesson. We are always growing. We are always evolving. And even if you want to consider the concept of karma, every experience is in its way fulfilling itself. Even if we look back and we go, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. There are lots of things I wish I could have done better, but they're all part of me and they're all part of this lifetime. And that's a really important sense of self-acceptance. That is part of this reflection process. So yeah, so in self-reflection, we do tend to, to get real healing and real transformation from the process, we do need to look at how our habits or reflected behaviors might have impacted our lives. So another really big key is to be present. And this is speaking to that acceptance thing. Get present to the moment. How is this impacting you now? How can you move forward from it? Don't get stuck in what ifs. What if I had have done that? What if I had not done that? That's all counterproductive. And what essentially, and especially Eckhart Tolle says, we only have the now. We are here now. The past and the future only exist in our minds. So if you're reflecting what's present for you now in this reflection, perhaps there is some energy in the body. Perhaps there's something that needs healing or release. And so do seek out support. Seek out, the help that you desire or require to let go of difficult pain patterns, difficult habits. That's really important because we're not alone. I haven't done this alone. I've had a great amount of help, at various points on my journey. Trust. Also trust that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you or the path that you have walked. As a matter of fact, it's brought you here. And, sometimes our biggest shortfalls are our biggest gift as well. And it takes courage to look at that and courage to see that in yourself and to acknowledge that who you are now perhaps wouldn't have done that then. But trust that there's nothing wrong with you, and that any of these patterns or habits are serving to teach you. And this is an exercise in free will. Humans are a free will species. And your free will is whether you want to remain in ignorance or remain in denial, or you want to make the free will choice to resolve that karma or that habit or pattern and move forward. You can continue repeating the same habits and patterns. That's fine. Maybe that's part of your choice in this lifetime, but we don't have to. Now, humility is actually really supportive for this process, for the idea of self-reflection, because humility, if we can be humble, we can let go of this distorted sense of perfection. And this speaks to those 4 qualities I mentioned. Humility allows us to not judge. It allows us to make mistakes, or to perceive that we've made mistakes. If I'm humble, I don't believe that I needed to be perfect. And that's why I said this distorted perfectionism. Everything is perfect. It's such a funny word, perfect. That everything is in its way and in its unfoldment, occurring in a beautiful tapestry or a beautiful dance, which is not always comfortable, but it is always what it is. And so embodying humility and not expecting yourself to have been perfect in the past, to let go and to know that, to allow yourself to be perfect where you are. And compassion. So our reflection of our dislikes or likes or judgment in the world, as I've mentioned, is a reflection of us. The demons we find outside of ourselves are just a reflection of those parts of ourselves that we deny. And so compassion for yourself, for all parts of yourself. And this can actually start, as I said, sometimes, with our blind spots. Compassion for what is outside of you, for the parts of your experience that you may, as I said, our outside experience is a reflection. So if you're seeing these demons, challenges, attacks outside of you, and you can learn to hold compassion. You don't need to excuse it or justify it, but just to have compassion. Then when you start to turn that spotlight inwards and start to recognize the imbalance or the limited patterns within, perhaps you will be able to show yourself that same compassion. And compassion, how often are we able to show kindness and compassion and patience to somebody else who is going through a hard time? And yet when we find ourselves in difficult territory, we clam up, we can't reach out, we can't accept help, and we speak to ourselves so unkindly. So just have a sense of awareness about how you're using your compassion. So compassion, love, and light. So as you self-reflect, you may see parts of yourself which you inevitably aren't proud of. The invitation and the transformation happens when we stop rejecting these parts of ourselves and we seek to understand the curiosity. Ask this part of yourself, why? Why are you angry? Why are you so hurt? Why are you so afraid? And by actually inviting this part of yourself to speak or to be heard, you can perhaps find a greater sense of wholeness and, start to integrate more of yourself, to feel safe, to actually be more of yourself. So thank you so much for receiving this message. I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, self-reflection is one of the most key tools to our process of ascension and our process of personal growth and expansion and empowerment. Self-reflection brings us back to our own power, self-responsibility, self-healing, self-love. And that's where we're all heading. So if this resonated, please like, also, subscribe to the channel, so you can receive notifications when I add more material. If this triggered or sparked anything in particular inside of you, please feel free to reach out via the social links or via email. I'm offering 3 or 6 months mentoring programs to really help to unravel and bridge the soul and the body, bring you more into alignment with yourself. So, I hope that this has served. I'm super grateful for your presence, and I'll see you again soon. Much love.